Welcome to the Avail Leadership Podcast, where our goal is to help you take your leadership to the next level. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're sitting down with my amazing wife, Gislaine Sierra. Together, we pastor Vertical Church, aka Iglesia Vertical, in South Florida, where we are one church, two languages. In this podcast, we'll be discussing the topic of leading together. We'll share a lot of what we've learned on our journey, and it is our prayer and our hope to equip other couples in leadership to do just the same. Let's get started. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Avail Leadership Podcast. As always, my name is Virgil Sierra. I'm the Avail media host, but today is a little bit different than most other times on the Avail Leadership Podcast because I am actually accompanied by a wonderful leader, a great leader, and may I add, a beautiful leader. Her name is Pastor Gislaine Sierra. Not only is she my wife, but together we pastor Vertical Church, Iglesia Vertical in South Florida, where we are one church.
Two languages.
That's right. Gislaine, how do you feel to be here on the Avail Leadership Podcast?
Well, I'm super excited and honored to be on the podcast. I can say that I've been on the other side all these past few months, getting to listen to all the different interviews and leaders that you've had the privilege of interviewing. And so I've learned so much from them. And so I'm honored to be on this side.
Yeah, this is fun because we do a lot of this at our church, as we lead. So by the way, we're going to talk today about leading together.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about leading together as a couple, as a marriage, leading together. We actually pastor the church together. Right. And before we kind of get into the topic of leading together and some of the things we want to share, maybe for some of those who are kind of watching or leaning in or listening for the first time and don't know us, can you start the little story of how we got to where we are today?
Sure. Well, it's an interesting story, but I guess I'll start off. I have to say this. I can't skip this part. Our families are both from Colombia, South America, and they were here in South Florida when our moms were both. Well, your mom was pregnant with you. My mom was pregnant with me, and our parents met here in South Florida, and we actually have. We have a birthday picture of your first birthday, and I'm being carried next to you at your first birthday. So
the legend goes that our mothers were pregnant with us, and we began to kick. That's what they say, but
yeah, I don't know about all that, but that's definitely an interesting part of the story. So, anyways, our families met here in South Florida and became good friends, and we have some memories of hanging out, as little kids, and our families being together, but. I guess to fast forward, our families kind of disconnected around the age of 4 or 5. Your family came to know the Lord and kind of went in that direction. And I did not grow up in a Christian home. I didn't grow up going to church. It was something that was not normal at all for me. So we didn't see each other for about 10 years. That's kind of our estimates. And we ran into each other again. Our families ran into each other when we were about 15.
And at that point, my parents had opened up a church after having a Bible study small group in our house for about 8 years. Yeah. They opened up a church, and I think that's where, when we reconnected, my parents invited your parents to come visit the church.
That's right. So they invited my parents, my family, to go to church. I honestly didn't want to go to church. I had just kind of a bad experience.
She didn't know what was awaiting her.
That's right. Jesus. No. But for sure, we did end up going to church, and that was just an incredible moment for me where I made a decision to give my life to the Lord. I was going through a really hard time because my parents were in the process of going through a divorce, and it was just really hard on me in that season. And it really was a moment where I had to, I decided to surrender my life to the Lord and say, I've kind of tried to do this in my own strength. I've tried to, fix everyone else's problems. And it was a very important moment for me to make that decision for myself, not because of my parents, not because of my siblings, but on my own. And so that's when I gave my life to Jesus and started my faith journey. And it was our church. This is the church, the only church I've ever been a part of. And
and it was interesting because as we kind of grew up together in youth group, by the way, I was the pastor's son, so I felt obligated to welcome the young lady back into the church and everything. Right. But our youth pastors guided us. We decided to start a courtship, and we decided to start start a relationship under the covering of our pastors and of course our parents as well. And we were able to make some good decisions relationship wise, and able to honor the Lord in our relationship, keep ourselves pure, our hearts pure, our bodies pure, and really honor the Lord with our relationship.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that for me though, a big part of it as well was because I didn't grow up in a Christian home and I really never saw a healthy marriage modeled. I never really desired to be married, and I didn't really know what that was going to look like. And so it was a process that the Lord kind of took me on as well to renew my mind in that area. And so I think that because of that, a lot of, in our relationship, we kind of started off as friends, but I think that my heart was really guarded just because I had seen so much, brokenness, I guess, in marriage. So I was guarded along the way. And in a way, I believe God helped us, kind of start off slow in our relationship.
For sure. And because we were young at that point, kind of our story, we were dated for 7 years before getting married. And now at the time of this recording, it's 2021, just before our 17th wedding anniversary.
That's
so
right.
17 plus 7, we're almost at 24 years that we've been living life, walking together in this life. And along the journey, even when we were in youth group, we got to serve together on our church's drama team. We got to minister together by going to missions trips. And so all that stuff was all preparation. Now hyper fast forward, in 2015, my parents were the pastors of our church, officially pass on the torch.
Wait, I have to interrupt you.
Yes.
You skipped a very important part.
Okay, yes.
So we got married in 2004, but then we also had 3 amazing kids.
Yes, you're right.
You can't skip that part.
I'm thinking leadership.
All right. Well, that's leadership too, right? So we did have 3 kids. So just for those that are listening, we have a 13-year-old. Caleb is 13. Sophia is 11. And Nico is 8.
And they're part of the story as well. And we're declaring leadership on their lives as well. And it's beautiful. 2015, we officially, my parents pass on the torch to us, not just because we're the kid, not because I'm his son, but because there's a calling. And throughout those years, for those who don't know, I was part of a Spanish Christian band that we toured throughout Latin America and the States for many, many years, about 20 years actually, doing ministry in Spanish and in English and in Spanglish. And all of that was also set up in preparation for a leadership journey. And so now we're here relaunching our church. And we gave the church a new name in that process, which is Vertical Church, and it's spelled the same in both English and Spanish. Vertical, vertical, which means up. We're helping people look up. And we've come to this point where we understand that God's called us to be one church, 2 languages. But in addition to that, to being one church, 2 languages, we realized that we have a together calling.
Yeah.
And I want to jump into this. So we're going to talk about leading together. And in this case, we're not just leading together, we're actually pastoring a church together. And I want to just start off by saying that marriage and ministry aren't opposing forces. For those who maybe have felt that way or think that way, we understand that in this process, in this journey, there can be tension, but tension can lead to extension, which obviously can lead to growth and for us being strengthened. But marriage and church were both established by God. We've understood that our marriage is probably the most important sermon that we can ever preach, because we can say whatever we want, but if people are looking at our lives. And so we want to be pastors who are building a strong marriage and building a strong church together. This is our together calling.
Agreed.
We understand that everybody is not called in the same way, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I think we were both on the same page. I think at a very early age, I don't know, there was something about us, even though we've always been very unique and we have our, differences, we always understood that working together, we made a strong team. And so I think that we were just very clear on God's calling as far as in ministry and leading together.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a real helpful episode for those who are out there who are leading together, maybe young couples that are beginning to work together. Maybe it's in ministry and in church like us. Maybe it's in a new business or a company, a family business or something, whatever it is. We hope that this is going to be a helpful talk. And maybe if you're not in that, maybe this is not your situation, I think you can still get some great nuggets out of this talk. And you might even be able to pass this on and encourage to a couple that you know that does work together. So again, we have this together call, which we consider a privilege. even though it could be challenging at times.
For sure.
And we understand that there's a difference between calling and assignment. Calling is about who we are, while assignment is what we do.
Yeah.
And I have a commitment to your calling, understanding that you're different than me. You have a commitment to my calling. And let me just say this off the top, because this could be challenging in some circles as well. We believe that God can gift a woman with the gift of leadership,
right,
and with the gifting and calling of pastoring and shepherding. We believe strongly in this. So this is something that we're committed to. We're committed to each other's calling. Now, let me jump into another topic, which I think is good for you to chime in on, which is authenticity.
Yeah.
We don't normally lead from a place of, hey, we got it all together, check us out.
For sure. I think that even as we began this leadership journey, specifically in the church, in this role, we knew we didn't know all the answers and we didn't have it all together. And so we've always, I think, led from that point, that place of authenticity and just being honest with others and saying, hey, we're in this process as well. We're learning and we're growing. And I think that we don't try to pretend. I think sometimes when we're in positions of leadership where people are looking up to us, there can be a sense of, I have to put on this, mask, or I have to put on this facade that we have it all together, that we know all the answers, that we have this all figured out. But I think that actually causes people to, for there to be a lack of trust sometimes, because I think it's important for us to be open and honest, that we are in the process and learning and growing as well.
Yeah, something that we have, people have commented us, a lot of times we'll do tag team preaching at church, for example, where we preach a message together on marriage or on relationships or whatever it is. And the craziest thing, when we relaunched the church in 2015 and have done this consistently throughout, one of the biggest comments, and I would say compliments we get, is that people truly appreciate it when we as pastors are vulnerable.
Right.
We do talk about the moments where you want to, lay hands on my throat, and or when we, when
throw a chancleta,
as we say in Hispanic homes, right? Which is a flip flop, right?
Right.
But people appreciate because they realize, wait a second, these are my pastors, they're leaders, but they don't think that they're perfect, because sometimes people walk into church thinking everybody's perfect here, especially the pastors must be perfect, right? And people really appreciate when we can lead, when leaders and pastors are leading from a place of authenticity, a place of real, like a real place, right? And so I think that that's something that I want to encourage couples that are out there and leaders. Just leading from authenticity is a huge win. All right, let's talk about leading together. There's obviously multiple sides to this scenario. There's two sides of the coin, if you will. Let's talk about some of the blessings and benefits. What are some of the blessings and benefits of leading together? Let's kind of bounce off of each other and talk about these. What would you say?
Okay, well, I would say one of the first things is that I think we feel more connected. There was a season in our life where we weren't working in the same place, leading in the same way. And even though we were married and it was wonderful, there was parts of your life that I wasn't a part of, and there was parts of my life that you weren't a part of, right? And so this opportunity to be able to lead together gives us more of a connection. We're on the same page on a lot of things, and we get to really live life together, right? We're on this journey, literally walking together. So I think that that's one of the blessings for sure.
I agree 100%. I think another benefit to leading together, and we've experienced this, is that we complement one another. We truly complement one another. And I'll just say, for example, there's areas where I'm weak. There's areas, whether it's administrative, whether it's a specific ministry area, whether it's an area where I'm less patient and I'm weak in and you're strong in. And that really is so helpful. And in the same way, there's areas that maybe you're a little bit weaker in, or you don't feel as comfortable in, and I feel super strong in, and we bring that complementing. Kind of a funny one, but you would probably say that one of my weaknesses is like fashion and
well, I don't know if I would say a weakness. I'll just say that you really don't pay much attention to that.
But that's why I have you.
Agreed. And I would say that you're probably a lot more comfortable, right, in front of the cameras and doing a podcast and these types of things, where for me, it's more of, you're having to push me a little bit to do that.
I push you a little bit, I help you out, and you help me out.
There you go.
So there's the complementing, of each other, and understanding that my weaknesses don't have to be this horrible negative situation, because they're complemented by your strengths. What else?
Yeah, I think that another benefit is that we know each other really well. You know, I've worked outside of ministry and worked with other people, great, you know, leaders. But there's a difference because you don't really know that person, you know, to that level. And so I think the fact that we are married, you know, we know each other so well. I don't think anyone knows me as well as you do. And I don't think anyone knows you as well as I do. And I think that that's a great thing. I think that's a positive thing as we're leading together because we speak the same language. You know, we have a mutual love and respect for one another. And I think this helps when we're leading together because, you know, we know that we're for one another, even though we are different, you know?
One thing that's scary to me is that sometimes I think you know me better than I know myself.
I would agree, 100%.
Because sometimes I don't even know what I'm gonna say, but then you say it and I'm like, how did she know?
Yeah.
That's creepy.
No,
But it's, I guess it's when you've been together for such a long time, you can experience things like that. And I do believe that we know each other really, really well.
Yeah.
I'll also add here on benefits or blessings of leading together is that we both feel ownership for it.
Yes.
You know, since we're both, in this case, invested in the life of Vertical Church, right? In the success of Iglesia Vertical, in leading our staff team and leaders and pouring into the vision, we both feel that ownership, and so it doesn't feel like I'm carrying this load alone.
Right.
It doesn't feel like you're carrying this load alone.
Right, and I would even add, it's not just carrying the load alone, but I would say, I don't feel like you're lagging behind me and I'm having to push you. You know, I feel like we're running next to each other.
Right.
Like we're running this race next to each other, and that's so encouraging, and I think that that's definitely one of the benefits, for sure.
that is really cool. And again, you know, every pastor is a different, you know, calling. Every church has a different culture maybe that God has called them to, and every scenario is not the same.
Right.
But I love that we lead together. Yeah. And I think there's some couples that are gonna really lean into this. Now there's this aspect, and sometimes our staff team has kind of mentioned this, this whole concept of, like sometimes when we walk into a meeting or somewhere, since we have that good relationship with our kind of high level staff and high leaders, they'll kind of say, Pastor Virgil, Pastor Gislaine, you know, mom and dad are here, so to speak. Talk a little bit into that family feel.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely, I think we have a family culture. We want to create that here at Vertical with our staff and with our team and our people. But you know, as I was thinking about it, you know, there's something, you know, in a family unit that a father brings and that a mother brings, right? You know, we obviously have a family. We have our 3 kids, and there's things that, you know, you bring as a father in that role that is really beneficial for our kids. Yeah. And in the same way, there's things that I bring that you don't, right? And so I think that with that complement of one another is something that I see also within our team and within our staff. You know, I know that there's single parent homes and that can successfully raise kids and, you know, healthy, strong kids. And, but I know that it is more of a struggle, right? It's almost like they have to play both roles. And I think that there's a benefit in the fact that we're leading together because we bring those, you know, those different
values and strengths.
Yeah, and perspectives. And I think that, you know, our team appreciates that.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful for us too, because the truth is we have men and women on our staff and in our kind of key leadership positions. Yeah. And it works out great because I'm able to follow up with the men when needed, whether it's a personal situation, whether it's a, you know, a family situation or a spiritual situation. As a man to man, I could journey with them. And
that's true. I just, you know, I'm obviously going to be a lot more connected with the ladies on our team, and I'm able to, you know, have those deeper conversations that they wouldn't have with you.
And sometimes we come together to speak to one of them or to them and their spouses. And so I think that's a great blessing as well. Yeah. I think it allows us to also lead a lot of different types of people because we have different personalities, different perspectives, different strengths. It helps us understand. Sometimes you understand a person in the situation they're walking through, whether it's a man or woman, and I just don't. Right. Because I'm different. Yeah. But you kind of get it. And so that it kind of expands our ability to understand our team. Yeah. I want to mention one more thing also. One thing, speaking of families, I think one of the things that our kids have noticed in us, in our marriage, is that sometimes at home there's tension. Right. Sometimes
we don't agree with everything.
Sometimes mommy thinks one thing, dad thinks one thing. Right. And so we've taught our kids, hey, it's okay to have healthy tension. Yeah. Especially if we're able to talk through it, and you know, and then the goal is to do things in a good way. And if we don't, then later apologize for it, forgive, and ask for forgiveness and all that. But also, it's also neat, and I think some of our team has given us feedback sometimes that it is good to allow for some tension when we're having staff meetings or when we're making important decisions or strategizing about a new program or a system or a structure that we have in the church, sometimes people are afraid of that stuff. And we might get into that a little bit more later, but afraid of tension. But healthy tension is okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that sometimes people make a mistake to think, for example, in a family, in a marriage, that if you avoid conflict, then that way you're protecting your children, right? But I think that conflict is a reality of life. Like, we're all gonna have to face conflict at different levels and at different times. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't talk about conflict and teach our families, our children, and obviously transitioning it to teams, right? On how to deal with conflict in a healthy way and in a biblical way as Christians, right? So I think that knowing that we're okay with having tension, like we know that we love each other no matter what, but there's going to be things that we're sometimes disagreeing on, and I know that sometimes that can make, obviously not always respectfully, but we can always have, we don't necessarily see eye to eye, and that's okay, and that tension, may cause a few people on the team or, the staff
to feel
uncomfortable, but they see us work through it, right? And I think that it's a healthy thing.
And almost always that tension will lead to a better result in the end.
Agreed. And I think it helps them learn, how do I deal with conflict when it comes? I'm not going to just sweep it under the rug. I'm not going to be super aggressive and disrespectful. Like, how can we have conflict? How can we have tension, right? And not necessarily see eye to eye, but be respectful and be kind and be loving, right?
So I've gotten excited about tension because of Dr. Sam Chan's book, Harnessing the Power of Tension.
You've mentioned it several times.
Yeah, and so I think I'm getting a reputation on the team for being a leader who likes to bring in tension on purpose, because in the end, and I've been learning this, in the end, tension will make things better. A healthy tension.
Yes, I agree. Right? And I will have to admit that I've had to learn that, because sometimes I see you doing it on purpose and I'm like, why are you doing this? And you're like, Sam Chan said. So. but you see the results, right? No, you're right.
All right, so obviously there's a lot of blessings and benefits, right, of leading together, journeying together. Now, we have to be 100% honest.
Yeah.
It's not always hearts and rainbows and unicorns.
Agreed.
As we're leading together. There's challenges. So let's talk about some of the challenges of leading together. And I'll start it off just by a simple one. And we talk about this a lot in marriage messages. We're different.
100%.
This is a challenge when we're leading together as a couple, is that we are different.
Yeah.
You're a woman, I'm a man. Just that is different. Our perspectives can be different. Our opinions and our preferences can be different. So there's this key in understanding the reality that we're different, but also understanding that God made us different.
Yeah, I think that, it's funny, when we were in our dating relationship, right, that, as you guys heard, was several years, we had so much opportunity to build this friendship, this foundation of our friendship, and get to know each other. And I feel like at that time, it felt like all the things we had in common was like this humongous list. And it was like very few things that I thought we would ever disagree on, right? And, I remember we went to our first marriage conference, right? And they talked about, conflict in marriage.
We were just a couple months,
I think it was like 6 months into our marriage. And I remember we were like, wow, we're not like all these other couples. Like, we never fight. We just must have it good because we're just such a great team. Well, it only took a few months more to realize that we were just like everyone else, right? But yeah, we're different. Not only are we obviously male and female, but I think that we have different backgrounds. The way that we grew up is completely different. You grew up in a Christian home, in a pastor's home. I didn't even grow up going to church at all. So, knowing, our personalities are different, our life experiences. So all of these things, even though I think they can be positive because we complement one another, as we said earlier, I think that can also cause friction. It can cause friction and misunderstanding.
So learning how to manage that and be okay with that is important. And we don't always get it right.
Yeah.
A lot of times we have to have a talk when we get home later, right?
Yeah, because I think that, I don't know, I'll say for myself, I think that sometimes it can feel like, I'm just giving an example. Let's say we have to make a decision, right? With a team or whatever. And then you have one opinion, I have another. It can feel like it's a competition. Right. Like if everybody likes my opinion better than yours, then that I'm winning, right? Versus, and obviously if everybody picks yours, then I feel like I'm losing, right? So I think it can easily feel like a competition, but I think we have to quickly remind ourselves that we have the same goal, we're on the same team, and that it's not about, it's a competition.
We don't want to compete with each other, we want to complement each other.
Exactly, complement one another.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we just kind of alluded to it, but one of the other challenges, I think, or in this whole process is just balancing, because we're married, so it's family and marriage, but it's also work.
For sure. And so I've learned that word balancing is just not, I think, the ideal word, because I think when we think balance, we think like everything's in equilibrium. And I think that's unrealistic. And so one of the things I learned real quickly when I started working here on staff was, I had this expectation. I had expectations of like, we're going to work together now for the first time. And I was so excited. I thought we were going to like drive together and like
Hashtag BFF at work.
Have lunch together all the time and just, hold hands as we walk together. I just had this obviously not realistic expectation. And just, understanding that wasn't reality, but then understanding that, when you are working together, when you're leading together, we're so passionate about what we're doing. We have so much ownership on what we're doing. And it's easy for the lines to get blurry, between what is work, what's ministry, what is marriage, what's our personal and our family life. And I think that is an area where there is a tension, and we have to really be intentional about keeping an eye on it, because if we don't, it's so easy for those lines to just completely be blurred, and then it can become unhealthy when when we're not giving attention to where it's needed.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for us sometimes is setting those boundaries on where and when do we stop talking about church and now kind of flip that switch, because we're so passionate about it.
Right.
It's not even a bad thing necessarily, but we're so passionate about it, and sometimes we'll be on our family time, right, or on our day off, so to speak, and we'll find ourselves coming back to, oh, did you talk to so and so, and when is this meeting, and what are we gonna, So setting those boundaries of, hey, this is personal family time.
Yeah.
And that's, we'll talk about this when we get back to work. So to speak.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we're still working on. It's not something that we've figured out 100%, but I think that we've set a couple of things in place that help us, in that area, which I think we're going to talk about. Yeah,
for sure. And we are going to share some things that have really helped us in a few minutes. Continuing on here with some challenges. You mentioned something when we were kind of talking about and discussing about what we were going to talk in this section. You mentioned something about our roles are different at home than what they are at work. Tell me a little bit about that.
Right. Well, I feel like when we started working together in 2015, actually I didn't start officially on board on staff until I think 2017. So we'd been married for many years already, over 10 years we've been married. And so it's almost like we already had our rhythm. We knew our rhythm at home. Like you knew what your role was, I know what my role was. Like, when it comes to family, when it comes to responsibilities in the home, it's like, it was very clear. It was like we already kind of had like a well-oiled machine, if you will. Yep. And then all of a sudden we're working together now. And so I just assumed that same maybe rhythm was going to be what we were going to find in the workplace, right? And realized very quickly, right, that wasn't the case. And also because I think we're still trying to define and understand our roles, but knowing, just to give an example, maybe the way that I'm going to talk to you at home, like if I disagree or if there's something on my mind, I might not have a filter at home and just kind of share from my heart and maybe just want to share my emotions.
Kind of a straight shooter.
Right, or whatever, I just want to share with you. And then understanding that, if we're here, for example, having some kind of meeting with our staff, with our team, and I can't do that with you, right? It's not the same. It's different in understanding that our roles are different, and it's almost like having to relearn, relearn how our relationship looks, or what our relationship looks like in the workplace.
I think I remember early on, at one point, that we were in some kind of meeting, and you did the way you responded. It wasn't something bad or horrible, but the way it made me feel, I was unhappy. And I think when we got home, I said, "Hey, I want to make sure that this doesn't happen in a meeting again, right?" And because we're feeling it out, and it hadn't happened because we weren't in that situation.
Yes.
And having to talk through that.
Yeah, I think that it's important to have that communication and talking through that and understanding, like not taking it personal and like trying to think back and say, okay, when I was not working with you and I was working with another employer, for example, like would I have spoken to them that way, or you know what I mean? Because there's so much comfort. There's a comfort level in our relationship because we've been married for so long. We're married. We're all of this, and so that comfort level sometimes you can step on each other's toes, I think. And so, and I'll say from my side as women, I know any woman listening will understand, but, for example, like, if we're working and maybe you'll speak to me or maybe in a very direct way, I can take it personal and be like, I'm your wife, don't talk to me that way. Like, you got to be a little more gentle. So, having to navigate those conversations and and talk about it. So, I don't know. I think that's definitely something that can be a little more complicated.
It's a good point because, You don't, you don't go to class to learn these things. You just, you start to live it out and walk it out as you're going through it. And so, I think part of the journey for us, and we're still walking through it, right, is learning, okay, we can talk to each other this way when we're at home and with our kids and with the family, but we need to, one thing that we've opted for, and we've both embraced this, and our church has embraced this, is a culture of honor. Yeah. We honor up, we honor down, we honor all around, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that principle has helped us be honoring with each other, especially when we're with people and around people, but at the same time being authentic. So I think that we've been able to have a good balance of both.
Right. And I'll just say real quickly, because I know we've given a lot of examples of conflict, but I think even in comfort, like in just being playful, you're a very, for those that don't know you, you're a super playful person. And that's part of our relationship, right? That's part of what our relationship looks like at home. And so understanding, how can that be part of our, we're not different people at work, but we just have different roles, and there's also different settings, right? There's different moments, and there's moments where that's okay, and then there's moments where, we have to, be a little more serious.
There's a front stage and a backstage. Yeah, you have been known to take videos of me in moments where I'm
oh my goodness,
maybe getting a little delirious late at night and laughing.
Oh my goodness, if I could show that,
or you catch me sleeping.
I'm telling you, people would enjoy those. I have moments. Okay, I have to tell everyone this moment.
Okay, I'll let you do one.
There was this moment. We're having a meeting, just the two of us. We're here in the office, and we are having a meeting about, I don't know, something that we were working on. And as I'm talking and sharing with, I don't know if I was sharing my ideas or talking through it, literally, Virg closes his eyes and starts falling asleep in the middle of the meeting, okay? So honestly, I couldn't even get offended. I just literally took my phone out and started recording you. And then I woke you up, and then, the way that you woke up was hilarious. So it's just, I have that in my memory, and I love. Is that
what I said? In Jesus' name, amen.
Yeah, you try to pretend you were praying.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. This is some of my strategies, pastoral strategies.
So anyways.
Well, it's true though. I think we, being who we are is important, being authentic. We've talked about that, but understanding that our roles are different. So let's shift gears here, towards the final stretch. Let's give some helpful recommendations. What are some helpful recommendations that we can give to other couples who are leading together, other couples who are beginning to lead together or will lead together, maybe even other couples who've been doing it for a while and are just kind of leaning in right now? What are some helpful recommendations in being successful and effective as we lead together?
Okay, well, I would say that one of the first things I would say is that clarity is key. Mm-hmm. Over communication is extremely, extremely important. Every season is changing, and I think that we can't assume that what I said to you, what we spoke about maybe and agreed upon, 2 weeks ago is still the same today. Things are constantly changing, whether it's in our, our ministry, work, church, whatever you want to call it, or things at home, right? So I think that it's important for us to over communicate. I think of this example. We had this opportunity a few years back to go to this marriage retreat, right? A couples retreat. And one of the exercises they had everyone do was to do these high rope courses, right? Do you remember that?
I loved it.
Well, I didn't, because we're different, right? And I do not like heights. I have a fear of heights, and they had us, go up on these really high ropes. And
I still have some nail marks on my sides and
I'm sure you do. Yeah. I'm sure you do. Well, I had to hold on tight.
The Lord's healing me. So.
I had to hold on tight. Well, anyways, it was really, honestly, one of the scariest things I've ever done. And so we're walking through this, and they're guiding us, and then after we finish, we kind of were talking about it. But I remember one exercise specifically where there was this knot. There was these different knots, right? As we progressed on these high ropes courses, they just got more intricate, right? Yeah. And so, there was these knots, and so you could. So I was behind you.
Yeah, I could see because I was the one in the front.
Exactly, you were the one leading me. You were in the front. I was behind you.
And I'm not exactly petite.
No.
Okay.
So then you kind of blocked the way, so I couldn't see anything. So I just held on for dear life.
Right.
Hence the nail marks, right?
Yeah.
So as I am as we're moving, it was very important for me for you to over communicate in that moment.
Right.
For you to tell me, okay, we're gonna take 2 steps forward, and
left
then
foot.
Right, left foot, right foot. Okay, now I'm gonna lift my literally walk me through every step of the way. That brought me so much more security in this very insecure moment. And talking about that exercise after and everything we learned in that exercise. I hope I learned everything I needed to learn, because I don't hope to ever have to do that again. But is just the importance of over communication, because the thing is, I'm following you, even though we're leading this church together. You are really leading the way, and sometimes you see so clearly ahead. You're just kind of going full force, and I need a little clarity. I need you to tell me, hey, we're going to take 2 more steps to the right. We're going to, go to the left or whatever. And that just gives me clarity. It gives me security, I think when you have clarity in communication, it brings security in the relationship. And I think that's been very important.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think that one of the things that you have highly expressed to me, and I have gotten the message, and we're still continuing to get better at it, is the importance of having meetings.
Yeah.
You tell me all the time, hey, I need to have a meeting with you.
Yeah.
We need to talk. And those meetings are very structured. Let's talk about the home, our marriage. Let's talk about our kids. Let's talk about the house.
Right.
Let's talk about church. Let's talk about ministry. Let's talk about responsibilities.
Yeah, talking about the calendar.
Let's talk about calendar. Yeah. These are things that have been very important for us to have clarity. And it gives us clarity as a couple. And then it also helps us portray clarity to our team and to the people that we're leading as well.
Yeah.
Let me jump into another thing that's been very helpful, connected to what we're talking about, is planning. Planning,
yes.
Right? This is another helpful recommendation. Pre-planning ahead of time. Planning, we call them planning retreats. Even if it's 2 days that we're going to take a planning retreat so that we can pray and plan ahead, for example, what's going to be happening in the next months or whatever. These planning retreats are important because we get on the same page. We work on our family calendar. We work on the church calendar. We work on the things that are really, really important and that are helpful for us to be on the same page on. So having a planning retreat, if you haven't done that, if you're not in the habit of doing that, it could be, maybe once a quarter you have one of these, 1 to 2 day planning retreats, and maybe once a year you have kind of a bigger one.
Yeah.
This can be very helpful.
Yeah, I think that has been a game changer for us as far as leading together, because it helps us really. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in the pace of working together, and it's go. And so when we are actually being intentional to pause and take some time alone, because there's always so many distractions, right? And so to take that time to retreat, right? To go away, and it's obviously special when it's a really beautiful place, right? Where you have some beautiful scenery, a nice beautiful place, but a place where we can actually reflect, where we can rest, and we can also talk intentionally about what the plan is, and pray through that and talk about it and compare, what expectations you may have or I have. And I think that's huge for us.
Yeah, and those planning retreats are important because not only is there, planning administratively, whether it's personal, family, also church and ministry in our case, work, but also to pray together intentionally and specifically about the planning that we're doing. So not to be confused with the planning retreat. Now let's talk about another thing just on a personal level, is going on dates and having quality time together. Yeah. That's not connected to our responsibilities at work and church, or even our responsibilities at home. Yeah. Just us.
This is huge. This is important.
Come on, girl, talk. Come on, release it.
This is my opportunity, right?
Release, this is your moment.
Okay. No, I will say this, though. The first year where we transitioned the church, right? It was a very big year where I think the Lord kind of showed us it was going to be, we knew that coming into that year, we were going to have to work really extra hard because we were transitioning the church in a different direction, right? As far as the leadership style and just the model of how we were doing church. And so we knew that it was going to take a lot of effort and work on our part. And so I think that, again, what we mentioned before, because we were so passionate, we had so much ownership in it, we weren't really giving that much intentionality to our marriage, in the sense of going out on dates and
we were more worried about everybody else and everything that had to be done.
Exactly. So it was so important for us after that year to really pause and take, we had someone kind of come and look at our organization and kind of helping us out. And I think having external eyes is so helpful because they ask questions that many people aren't asking. And if you're a lead leader, your lead leaders, not many people are asking you, hey, when was the last time that you guys went on a date? Not many people ask those questions, but they're so important because, in order to have a healthy organization or a healthy church, healthy whatever business, and you're leading together, it really has to come from a healthy marriage, right? And so asking the question, I remember that we did this
he did kind of like a questionnaire.
Right.
Where we had to rate ourselves. You would rate and I would rate.
Exactly. Like how we were doing in different areas. Right. And I remember the area that we got the lowest score, and that we both rated ourselves in the lowest, it was in our social fun category, right? Which that's crazy, right? Because you would think that would be the easiest thing. Right. But I think when you're leading together, that kind of, you put those things on the back burner. You know, you kind of put that as the last thing to do. But I think it's so important that we're intentional about having time where we are having fun and playing and going out on dates and being romantic and investing into our marriage, because that quality time really is going to help our marriage be stronger. It's going to help us be more united and have a better balance of not just work. Because I think if we're honest, I mean, we're both passionate about what we're doing. We love
we could both
leading.
literally wake up, start working, and go to bed.
Right.
Literally.
Because there's always, and I'm sure this isn't the case, in many organizations where there's so much to do, you know, that you could easily fill your whole day working in, right? But we have to be so much more intentional to say, you know what are going to be our date nights? We're going to go on a date. You know, we're going to make sure we have a babysitter. We're going to go on a date. We're going to go do something that we both enjoy. And I tell Virgil all the time, I'm like, it doesn't have to be, like, sometimes it's great to go somewhere special. You know, I want him to be intentional, right? That's the key word I say.
Intentional.
And you know, taking me to a nice place. But there's sometimes where it can be something as simple as like, hey, I just want to go for a walk and I just want to hold hands and go for a walk and just dream a little bit, or you know, let's, you know, whatever it may be. But I think it's important to put that on the calendar, because then it can easily, you know, weeks can go by, months can go by, and you don't remember last time you went out on a date together.
And we don't have to go in that to right now, but it also includes time with the family, and those of us who have kids, really having intentional time with them, so that they see that they're not on, you know, on the back shelf. They're a priority in our lives too.
100%.
So I want to jump in. You kind of mentioned this, but another thing that's been helpful for us is having external eyes and external voices, and maybe I would say counselors. Consultants, coaches, right?
Mentors,
Mentors. This has been really important for us on all the levels. On the organizational level, having a consultant, having a coach, if you will. You know, on the ministry and pastoral side, having some mentors and overseers who speak into our life, who care for us. You know, that soul care aspect. But then also having counselors. I think that, you know, for such a long time, there's always a stigma with, you know, I don't need counseling.
Right.
You know, I don't want to have a counselor. And we've invited that into our lives because we've gotten that as an important advice from a lot of leaders and pastors that have gone ahead of us and are further down the road. They said, hey, you need some of these key people in your life. And so we've invited that. We have a counselor. We have a marriage counselor that we go to, you know, at least quarterly, and just talk about marriage. And a lot of times I'll talk to him a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
As a man, we have mentors that are speaking into our lives and into our ministry, and that are there to coach us. We have pastors that are just helping us and leading us on our journey. How important is that, do you think, to just have those voices and those extra ears and eyes around us?
Yeah.
For us?
Honestly, I just don't know how people do it without having those extra, you know, those other people in their lives that care for them and are helping guide them. You know, the people have gone before them. You know, there's a verse in Proverbs that says there's wisdom in the counsel of many, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes when we're in a leadership position, we kind of think that we're exempt. And I think that's such a mistake. I think that we are always students. And I think that we would be wise to have those voices in our lives. And I think that for me particularly, knowing that I can go to someone and seek counsel, seek advice, or just honestly just be able to pour my heart out, because maybe many times when you're in a leader position, if that's how you say it, you can't just open up your heart with anyone, right? You're not going to just, you know, bare your soul to anyone, but to know that there's a safe place, that there's a person that cares for you, a person that is praying for you, a person that's obviously going to be confidential about things, but that you can go to is so important. And I think it brings a lot of healing, it brings a lot of freedom, and just somebody to give you a different perspective, because many times, you know, maybe we're on different pages about something, and I feel that no matter, like, you're speaking Chinese and I'm speaking German, right? It's like we're not communicating, like we're not getting to one another. You know, we're not able to clearly communicate and be on the same page. And I know that when our marriage isn't doing well, like, that's going to reflect in our ministry. That's going to reflect as we lead everywhere, right? And so it's been so helpful to know that we have, I know that if you're going to go to, you know, a mentor or a counselor and talk to them and pray with them, I know that you're going to receive from them just like I am. I just think that that's so key.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And I think we need to open up more to this for our soul care sake. And having, you know, in my case, having in most cases older men that are farther along in the journey, that have experienced more than I have, that can really speak into me and encourage me and advise me. You know, and wisdom doesn't come just from age. Sometimes there could be a young leader who could give just as much wisdom and insight.
I think for me also just people that are in the same role or position, that are parallel.
Other pastors and
that can relate.
Other couples, right?
Yes.
That are leading how we lead.
Yeah, God has brought so many beautiful couples into our lives that that it's just so refreshing, right? To be able to share and talk with
100%.
them. So.
Let me mention one last one, and then we're going to go some closing thoughts.
Okay.
One last helpful recommendation that's been important for us, and we learned this early on, a little bit before we took the leadership role in our church, and it's observing a Sabbath rest. Really, really honoring and following that commandment, by the way,
yes.
of having a day of rest, which in our case is Monday. Most Christians, Sunday tends to be their day of rest.
Right.
For us, Sunday is kind of one of our biggest days of work. And so for us, Mondays is usually our Sabbath, but really committing to the Sabbath rest. Would you say that has been an important recommendation for us?
Oh my goodness, that was, I think, a game changer for us because it just reminded us of, again, it's not just about like a rule that we have to follow, but just God's goodness, right? In his grace and in his goodness, place this day for us, right? So that we're able to just pause and rest and enjoy, the fruit of our labor. And so I think that it's been such a refreshing day for us. Like recharging. I can say that one of my favorite days of the week is Monday now. Yeah. Monday for sure. Like on Sunday after a long day of work and ministry, I am always looking forward to Monday and just knowing that day we're going to have some time together. We're going to rest. We're going to
honor the Lord.
Yes.
No work.
Right.
We commit to it. No work. That's one of the things that we've learned in this process is, God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh, not because he needed it, but because he wanted to leave a model, a principle that he knew we would need.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have that mentality of thinking, no, if I work 7 days without stopping, I'm going to get more done, when really I realized I'm so much more effective and productive when I honor God by taking a Sabbath rest and not working on that day. Makes a big difference. Just some closing thoughts. This has been a great conversation, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes, and I also have to confess something.
Tell me.
I've never felt the urge of wanting to kiss any of my other.
That's a very good thing. That's a very good thing.
See, we're authentic. We're real. I'm being real. Okay, so we'll leave that for after recording.
Yes,
okay, so some closing thoughts that are just important things that we just kind of jotted down. Knowing each other is so important, right?
Yeah, I think that it's important to understand that we're different, like we've mentioned again. Knowing what your strengths are, for me to understand what your strengths are. And not only that, I'm going to take it to the more romantic side, right? But understanding what is your love language, Because we are a marriage, we're a marriage first. That's something that I think we are... we're being intentional and remembering is that our marriage is first before any ministry, before anything we do, because obviously that came first. And so if I know what your love languages are, if I know how to love you and how to encourage you and how to bless you, and
how to fill my tank,
how to fill your tank, right? And you for me, I think that it just brings so much health to our marriage, and also I think that many times we tend to see the world through our own lens, and so we think that other people should be more like us or think like us, or and usually we're opposites, right? So I think to understand what your strengths are and encourage those strengths, encourage those perspectives.
Yeah. As we do that also, I think speaking the truth in love to each other. And I'll say that you do this very well, even when I'm resistant to it, even when I don't want it, right? But there's been moments where you're the only one who can get through to me, and you speak the truth in love. And understanding that with each other. There's moments that I have to speak the truth to you in love, right? And vice versa. These are keys for leading together. Another one we mentioned earlier, don't be afraid of healthy tension or healthy conflict. Conflict provides an opportunity for unity, and unity doesn't necessarily mean uniformity. So understanding that we can have different opinions and different thoughts, and sometimes your thought and your way is gonna be better than mine. And vice versa, or somebody on the team. But when we come together and we're not afraid of tension or fleeing away from any kind of conflicts, this is going to help us understand that our diverse giftings and strengths coming together, along with prayer and discernment of the Holy Spirit, will result in great things in our leadership.
Yeah, I truly believe that we are stronger together. I think that may be a cliche or kind of, things that you hear, but I do think that we're stronger together. I think that we can do exponentially more together than we can individually. And, I believe that we are not only our marriage, but our ministry. Like, I think that's something that God has brought together. And I think that God wants us to give him the glory for what he's doing in our lives, but understanding that we're unique, right? That I don't have to try to be like you, and you don't have to try to be like me. And to be honest, I now that I'm thinking, that's something I forgot to mention. I remember when I first came on staff, like, I felt that I needed to run the same at the same pace, right? That you were running. And I tried to do that for 6 months, and I'm telling you, I burned out. I said, forget it. Like, I quit. Like, I cannot do this, because I was really trying. Like, I was trying to prove to you that I was in this, as much as you were. And I realized, like, wait a second, this is not. I was trying to be you.
We're not built the same way.
Right. We're not built the same way. And that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
So understanding that, and you were so gracious to know and say, hey, I don't expect you to be me. And I don't expect you to, run at the same pace. And so being able to have those conversations, I think was very freeing and helpful. And I will say that, comparison is sometimes, it can cause there to be moments where we question maybe even our roles or our calling or our identity. And so I think it's so important to remember that our identity is not in a role or a title, right? Our identity is in Christ. And our assignment, like you said before, our assignments may change, our roles and titles may change, but our calling never does. And so I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, because I think with the way we kind of worded it at one point is, because I can run, and I can run hard, and I can run long, and I can keep running. And I think what we discovered in the process is that you can run hard for sprints for a certain amount of time.
Like, let's just say, like, you're more of a marathon runner and I'm more of like a sprint. So I can go, like, if I need to work hard, because we see it, I see the deadline, I see that there's a place, okay, I can run hard. But after that, I need to go on a break. I need to relax. I need to, so it's different.
Understanding that we're different. Fun terminology that we've learned along the journey as well. When we're talking about certain things, there's moments, for example, you like to enjoy the ride. I like to land the plane.
Right.
Depending on what the conversation is, or what it is. All these things are part of learning each other. But this has been really good. I want to make a little plug for the Avail Journal before we close off. Before we close off with some final comment remarks from you, Pastor Gislaine. Let me just mention, if you have not yet connected and subscribed to your free annual subscription to the Avail Journal, which I'm holding here in my hand for those that are watching the video, let me just tell you, if you're listening to the podcast, the Avail Journal is the most impressive, high quality, relevant content leadership Christian magazine out there right now. This is the best place to get some amazing leadership content, the Avail Journal. You can subscribe to your free annual subscription by going to availjournal.com, availjournal.com. Amazing articles, great insight into leadership, and hopefully in the future, maybe we got to pitch it to the Avail team. We got to do an article on leading together. I think that'll be really, really good. We'll see. Sure. We'll see what happens. But anyway, if you haven't done so, you can subscribe to the Avail Journal by going to availjournal.com. And for a lot of other things, leadership-wise, you can go to theartofleadership.com. So in closing up here, Pastor Gislaine Sierra, what are some closing thoughts or remarks you want to share just about leading together?
Well, I guess closing remarks, I would say that leading together there's great parts of it, but to be honest, there's a lot of things that make it complicated. And I think that it takes a marriage to another level. I feel like in our marriage has grown, but we've been stretched like never before in these last 6 years. And so I think that to understand, not to to be real about it, to understand that it's not easy, right, to lead together. I think, but at the same time, I think that if we push through, if we are sensitive to what God is doing individually and in our lives together, I think what we can do together, what God can do through us, is so much greater than anything we could do on our own. So
I love that. Relationships are complicated. Leading a church and pastoring a church can be complicated. Leading together in general can be complicated. But when God is in the center, He helps us. He leads us as we lead others. And some might think, wow, leading together as a couple, that's double trouble. And sometimes it feels like double trouble, but I would say in the end, it turns into multiplied blessing.
Amen.
Far beyond what we could imagine. This was pretty cool. What'd you think?
Yeah, it wasn't
that bad.
It wasn't as bad as
All
I
right,
thought.
so maybe we're gonna be able to convince you. Dr. Sam Chan, Martine, Avail team, maybe we'll do this again in the future if it's been helpful. But thank you, Gislaine. I just want to take a moment to thank you for being part of the Avail Leadership Podcast. Doing this together has been really, really good. And I want to take a moment also on behalf of the Avail team and myself to honor you and bless you. You are an amazing leader, and I am in the first row watching you grow, watching you spread your wings, watching you go beyond, I think, what you ever thought you could go. And I really want to tell you I'm proud of you. I'm thankful for you. I think that you make me a better leader. And you make everybody on our staff better just by your presence, your input, your love. And I don't think that Vertical Church, Iglesia Vertical, our kids and our family, or any of us or myself could go anywhere where we're getting to if it wasn't for you. So
thank you so much.
I love you and I honor you. And on behalf of the Avail team, we're thankful for your life. Keep leading and let's keep doing this together.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Thank you, everybody, for connecting with us here on the Avail, a special episode of the Avail Leadership Podcast, together with Pastor Gislaine Sierra, my wife, my bride, also the one who's helping me pastor this church and take it to a whole nother level. Thank you, God, for this opportunity. And I hope all of you who've been connected on this Avail Leadership Podcast episode have gotten something from it, have been encouraged in some way, shape, or form. Maybe this has been a blessing for you to learn how to lead together in your situation, or maybe you can recommend to somebody to chime in and take a listen or watch this video, because I think there's great insights here that are going to be very helpful for all those leading together.
We hope you've been inspired by this conversation with my wife, Pastor Gislaine Sierra, and myself. Remember, you can connect with us on our social media under Gislaine_Sierra or Virgilio Sierra on Instagram. And you can also find us at verticalchurch.com or iglesiavertical.com. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. Make sure to claim your free annual subscription of the Avail Journal at availjournal.com. And if you'd like to connect to our growing leadership community on Facebook, visit availleadershipconnect.com. As always, I'm Virgil Sierra, and we thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the Avail Leadership Podcast.